Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
So this one is a bit far off from the idea of family, because we talked about family quite a bit in the episode 600, or last group episode of Coaching in Session. When we talked about family, we talked about, what was family, or what is family, who is our family. And I just think we should be doing the work to identify what that entails. Because when it comes to family, I love speaking on family. I have a couple episodes on it just this past year alone, where family is such a big proponent, yet we might take it for granted. We grow up with our siblings. We grow up with our grandparents, our parents, maybe. And then, of course, maybe we find some really good friends and we say, you know what, these friends are going to be our family, right? In a sense, right? I remember I guess was like maybe in third grade, maybe sooner, we started to develop, tight knit friends with people. We were known as the 3 or 4 musketeers of like the people who were our close friends. And, when everyone's all grown up and gone, one of my friends at the time, he went to Puerto Rico because he was Puerto Rican, but, so they went back to Puerto Rico. And then another friend, he was, still living in the States. I think he might have moved to Florida. And so there was a different dynamic, right? We were separated by distance, but then again, the idea of who we were growing up, it kind of stuck with us, right? They remembered who I was, and I remember who they were. And it was funny because they had found each other before they found me. I guess I was difficult to find. I mean, I'm sure if you type in my name anywhere, it comes up very quickly. But maybe they spelled it D-O-N instead of D-E-N. I mean, maybe they didn't even know my last name because it's not a common name, but it is common in some areas. But, they reached out to me at one point. I think we had like a video call together. And, I talked to one of them when he moved, different, countries in a sense. Puerto Rico is part of the United States. It's a Commonwealth, I believe. He was basically made fun of and bullied because he didn't know the lingo and the Spanish like how they did, right? So he was an outcast in a sense. I remember, just people coming to America and how they had accents or Polish or something. And people didn't necessarily pick on them in a sense. It wasn't that we couldn't. It was just that it was more accepting in America, right? America is the melting pot, right? Other countries, when you go somewhere, it's like, well, you are different. You are a foreigner in a sense. Now, our world today is very different than the world of the past, because we can look at the immigration crisis, what's happening, how many people are being deported, etc. And then I look at my other friend, very happy to see me, very different lifestyle. But then again, even though we had such a strong bond growing up, it wouldn't be a bond that I would readily say, let's continue this bond to our today adult life. And it's not that they're bad people. I don't believe they are. I believe they're good people, good hearts, right? I wouldn't mind having them in my life, right? But then why am I saying this? And I say this because there's this idea, this concept called family business. And it's not a term I coined or anything. It's just the idea of there's business in the family. Now, Kanye West, he wrote a song about this, talking about family business, of, talking about how his aunties might do something, or his uncles, or about, might be alcoholics or smoking crack or whatever. And that's family business, right? There's no reason for me to say anything about my family. There's no reason for me to say, this is the dirt on my mom, and this is the dirt on my dad. And of course, I use stories and I tell life experiences from them, not to belittle them, but for you to understand that sometimes in life, there's going to be people that you love dearly. And sometimes they're going to be facing challenges that you might not know how to navigate through. And so we work together, right? We work as a family unit. And in a sense, coaching in session is almost like an unspoken family. If you are listening to the podcast, if you have got any coaching before, then you are very aware of how important family is because I make it very clear of how important family is to me. Now, if you are a person who's not family oriented, maybe you're super career driven, right? You have no family. Think about, where you want to be in 10 years. Do you want to have a family? And maybe, what is your definition of family? We can define what that is. And our world today, like especially like social media influencers and things like that, like I know there's people who will stream themselves sleeping. Like what? Come on. Like you go to stream yourself sleeping, there's a bunch of people watching this person sleep. And I mean, hey, sure, I could say you're a weirdo for watching someone sleep, but then again, if I see my kid sleeping, I'm say, oh, like look at him sleeping or something. I snap a picture and stuff. I have a whole collage of him sleeping or, my daughter sleeping. It's just like, this is something I'm going to show them. I'm like, look at this. When you used to take naps and now you don't want to take naps. Cause I remember me growing up, my family, like I didn't want to take naps, like naps are for babies. And so now if I can take a nap, oh man, you let me in, right? You take the kids and I'm gonna go lay down for a little bit and I'm gonna catch a 30, maybe an hour and a half, right? Depending on how tired I am. It's very interesting how life develops and evolves because if you ask me when I was one of those three musketeers growing up and with my friends, I couldn't tell you where I would be today. I couldn't tell you the girl I would have married. I wouldn't tell you the kids I would have and their personalities. I couldn't tell you the situations my parents and my family would be in. I couldn't tell you about the bonds that maybe were once weak that are now stronger with my siblings. And we can go down the line of what happened in the family. But this is life. Life is going to continually evolve. And I always say that if you could, have a crystal ball and know everything that would happen, would you try to do things differently or would you just allow everything to happen the way it was going to be happening? Right. So if you knew someone is going to pass away, right? One of your family, your loved ones, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever, and you said, you know what? They're going to pass away in 10 years. Would you love them more? Or would you just say, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing what I have always been doing, right? Taking them for granted. Even if you had a crystal ball, you would still take it for granted. You would take life for granted. You would take those moments, the things that made you who you are for granted. Because not everyone has had a pristine childhood growing up. Most childhoods are going to be childhoods that come from hardship and broken households. And I was watching a video of a family and she was, not taking care of her son the right way. He basically had a dirty diaper on the whole time and he was dirty, no shoes, no shirt, no clothes, right? Just kind of just a diaper and that was it. And of course, CPS comes and takes the kid away. And sure enough, the mom is like, don't worry, we're going to do everything we can to get you back. And the reality is she going to change? Is she going to do the work to change? Is she going to change her circumstances? She's going to give herself different routines and disciplines. I mean, some people, they become so fixated in their current self that they don't want to change. And of course, when you are dealing with kids, especially if you're a mother, there's going to be some type of inclination to say, hey, I want my baby, I want my baby back. But then there's going to be some people who are going to say, you know what, it's just easier to, let them be in the system, right? Which is the right way, right? For the child to grow up in a house where maybe they don't have everything with a mom and a dad that's there, or maybe just one parent that's there, or to grow up in an orphanage, just around other people, and for them to create bonds of them being the three musketeers or the four musketeers or whatever it be, forming parties and alliances and saying, okay, we're BFFs forever. But I think, what is family? And we get down to the definition now of what is a family. Is it blood? Is it an idea? Because we can look at home, and home is an idea. Home is not the four walls that you surround yourself in. It is not a location, right? So I live in Texas. It's not Texas. I can live in Montana. I can live in Utah. I can live in Switzerland. I can live in Alaska. It doesn't matter where I live. Home will always be where I am. It is a mindset. It is something that you have to realize that wherever I am, I'm safe and I'm secure. Because home essentially means safety and security. You have your locks, you have your doors, you have your food, right? Everything is taken care of at your home typically. Now, some people, they can't call their home a home just because they lay their head down at night because maybe they don't feel safe. Maybe there are, is no food in their home. And so their home is a prison cell for them. And so they have to do the work to evolve from what that home is to the home that they want to have. But family, we can't just come into this life saying, I'm going to change my mom, I'm going to change my dad, and I don't like my siblings, and I'm going to change my siblings. Sometimes, there's going to be things that are permanent, right? Well, we can adopt, right? So you can get a different mom. Your mom, like a woman, can adopt you, and you can say, this is my new mom, right? But she'll never truly be your biological mom, dad, or whoever. That doesn't necessarily mean what family is won't change. Because the mom who didn't take care of you, or the dad who didn't take care of you, might not be considered family by you. But then again, the stranger who cared for you and loved you, that might be family. That might be something more than a parent or a guardian. It might be your lifeline. So we have to be able to define what is family. Because like I said, we can define what home is for us, but family is so much more intrinsic, is so much more complex. Because in a sense, a family member might be someone that you always support, but then maybe a family member is someone who, if they do the wrong thing, you allow them to face their consequences, saying, hey, like you made your bed, you sleep in it. I was talking to my wife the other day. Yeah, I was saying, growing up, especially, with our daughter, she was like, like she's going to be trouble, like not in sense of being a bad girl, but being trouble in the sense of she's going to be so beautiful. And, there's gonna be all these guys wanting her, and it's gonna be fawning over her, and I can see it. She's like, "You have to be tough with her," and I go, "No," I said, "Quite the opposite." I said, "Quite the opposite." I said, "I have to just teach her, I have to educate her, I have to, give her the tools and the resources that she can utilize to make informed decisions by herself, not so much me trying to control her and restrict her movements." 'Cause sure, yeah, everyone's gonna have a curfew. I mean, I don't want you to come home at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're 14. That's a problem, right? There are going to be some expectations for the household, the family rules, right? There's no phones in the car. There's no phones at the dinner table, right? It's family business, right? We don't need outside people to come in our conversations, right? If we're watching a movie together, let's watch a movie together. Let's not be distracted. It's family. So family is something that you have to be very strict with. You have to say, this is what the family would do, and this is what the family does. Now, I'm not just only talking about family vacations, right? Family vacations are fun, right? We go on family vacations with everyone, and we'll go to different places in the world. We'll go to all inclusive resorts, and it'll be a lot of fun. And, there'll be drama on the trip most of the time. And like for my family, it's always drama, right? There's always something that happens on a trip when we all get together. And it's not so much always bad, right? It's just always like, oh, this is life, right? This is the family. This is the dynamic, right? Now, I remember last year, right? So it was a year ago at almost exactly, where I went up for my mom's birthday. And it was a surprise because she was having a big birthday party. And it was, to be honest, like it wasn't like her 60th birthday or anything, but it was gonna be a party, right? The party got canceled because my grandmother fell and was in the hospital. She had like a broken arm or something. It was one of those things where, okay, let's cancel the party. But guess what? I already bought the plane ticket. I already planned to go up there. And so we went up and we basically surprised them on or the day after the birthday party. So it was a nice surprise, of course, but it would have been just so much more fun if the party was still going on and we just showed up at the party saying, "Hey guys, I heard you having a party," and no one knew we were coming, right? That was the plan. But it didn't work out that way, right? Because family business, right? We had to take care of grandma. So priorities came in. And so we prioritized our elder, right? We prioritized a monarch. And we said, okay, this is where our focus should be. And in our life, especially for the young minds, and I know people who are listening to this podcast are people who can relate to this, is if you still have your parents around, you might be so focused on growing your life, your wife or your husband, your kids, and you're worried about them, maybe their schooling, vacations, or whatever. And you're not necessarily worried about mom and dad, maybe not yet. Maybe you do have to worry about them, or you take care of grandma and grandpa, or someone, right? You are just kind of moving through life. But then at some point, you are going to have to maybe step up. Now, I understand there's a bunch of nursing homes and there's a bunch of individualized cares, private home health cares, and things like that, where you can have someone go to their house and take care of them. But then again, I always say, like, if you want something done, if you have the skill for it, you're going to do it better than someone else would. I think of an entrepreneur and a secretary. Anyone can write an email. Anyone can, create a thumbnail for a YouTube video or something, right? That is not a difficult task. But when you put in the work yourself, you can say, okay, this is exactly what I'm looking for versus someone else doing it. Because even if someone did something for you, right? I had an artist who created the logo for the business, right? The bird and the mountains. And the first, I guess, edition or drawing, it wasn't good. There was just so many like irregularities that I'm surprised he didn't pick up on, right? But he could only take the concept that I gave him and create something that he thought was appropriate. And he did phenomenal work. But, it took a couple of tries, maybe 5 or something like that, before I said, "That's it. This is the logo." And, sometimes in life, right, we don't have that opportunity to say, "You know what? I don't want what was given to me. I want to change it." Because it's very simple to say, "You know what? I don't like my family. Let me get a new one. I don't like how my family is acting, so I'm gonna put them on a pause. I don't like where my life is going, so I'm going to just kind of throw everything away and start anew." Sometimes you can't do that. Sometimes you have to work with what you have. I think of like cleaning your room. If you're a teenager, you're not going to just throw everything away, right? Maybe you have a lot of garbage in your room, but you're not going to just throw all your clothes in a bag and start over all the time, right? Your parents are not going to allow it. They're going to say, wash your clothes, pick up the stuff, put it on the shelves, right? You're not going to just empty out the whole room and say, "Mom, I need a new bed. Mom, I need a new mattress. Dad, I need new clothes. I need new shoes," right? No, right? It doesn't work that way. We have to do the work and we have to fix the things that might be unorganized or might not be exactly where they need to be. And so family business is more than just, you know, what's happening in our family and our day-to-day lives. It's also going to be the things that we have to fix. Are we communicating with our mom and our dad? And I think of so many people who are older. And there was a star, I forget his name. He played Batman, I think, like one of the first ones or the second one. And he said, if you have a mom, oh no, it was a guy. He was the grandpa in Guardians of the Galaxy, or the dad or something. I think that was the guy. Or he was the grandpa in Tomorrow Day or something. I forget, but he's like an older guy, bald, beard, and he is super in shape now. Like super in shape, like for an old guy, like super good. But he just talked about, if you have a mom, call her. Have a dad, call them, not tomorrow, today, right now, call them, tell them that you love them. And that was it, right? He was just like, do it. I can't tell you how many kids never talk to their parents. I have family members who don't talk to their parents. they basically disavowed them. They were like, okay, thanks, for raising me. And, I'm just so different now that I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my own thing. We are dealing with a mental health crisis in America, not only from the standpoint of how people think, but of how people operate in the sense of cordiality, in the sense of you can have someone who does something for you or so much for you, and you don't appreciate anything they have done. Now, maybe it's not your job to appreciate what someone has done for you, right? Like if someone opens the door for you, maybe you don't say thank you or that you appreciate them, right? Maybe it's not your job. Maybe you're having a rough day. Maybe you don't even know what you're doing. And so you just kind of bypass the product. But in your life, if you had someone who has taken care of you, and I mean, I look at my kids and I know for 100%, in fact, and I know rappers and people talk about this, especially people with money, they talk about their kids and how they are reliant on them growing up because a kid can't live by themselves and feed themselves. Like they rely on the parent or guardian figure or someone to help take care of them. And at some point, they're able to take care of themselves. And maybe they go down the path of taking care of someone else, right? But then sometimes they don't take it for granted, like they do take the things for granted. I think of the story of 50 Cent and his son. And apparently, like after the child support ended or whatever, and the kid was 18, I believe 50 Cent was giving his son, I want to say $4,000 or maybe $6,000 a month for living, right? Saying, hey, takes this $6,000 and just live, right? Go get your job, make some money. You know how many people make $6,000 a month? Probably like 20% or like maybe 35%, right? Around there. Not a lot of people, right? Most people, they're making anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000 a month. And there's a kid that is coming up 18, making $6,000 a month for doing nothing, for being a kid of a rich person. You get $6,000. Family business, right? But then again, he takes it for granted. He's like, oh, what am I going to do with $6,000? I can't live with $6,000. It's a mindset, it's a lifestyle. And so you create what you want for your family. Now, of course, you should be with a person that has a very similar type of lifestyle that you would like to have, right? If you want to live in the woods and your partner doesn't want to live in the woods, then it's probably not a good relationship, right? Now, maybe you can compromise, but you're going to have so many hiccups in that family dynamic because someone is happy living in the forest and someone is miserable living in the forest. So you find a nice, calm middle ground where you might live close enough to the city where you can go into the city, but then you live far enough where you can have your chickens and you can have your farm and whatever, and you can live off the grid or whatever you want to do, right? It's family business. It's family business, right? Maybe you want to be a dutiful husband or dutiful father or wife or mother, and you want to be in your kid's life, right? Maybe you want to be too much involved in your kid's life and you want to fight all their battles and you want to do everything that, is going to take away their self esteem. It's going to boost up your self esteem, but it's going to make you feel like you're so involved because maybe you didn't have a parent who did that for you. It was family business. And so you need to figure out what type of family dynamic you want to create. Do you want to have a family where people can be open and there could be communication flowing? Or do you want maybe a family where everything is so full of hostility? And I know when it comes to families, people who probably hang around Thanksgiving and Christmas time. That's easy, right? But then again, throughout the year, are you doing the work to be in touch and stay in touch with your family? Because if you're not, it's still family business. But then again, if something happened to one of those family members, would you show up? Would you be able to help them? Do you want to help them? Or would you say that's not my concern? All of these questions are important to ask yourself because then it's going to help you define what family is. Because maybe family for you is defined as no matter what, no matter when, no matter how, we will figure this out together. That's my idea of family. As much as I wish things can be instant because I can plan for my life very easily. But when someone else throws a wrench in the mix and they say, hey, this happened, I go, oh, I didn't plan for that. Right. And so now I have to figure out, what do I do? And I remember I was talking to a good friend of mine. He was talking about how his mom was going through some things and he had to basically step in. And he's a little older. And so he was saying, like, it's not a big deal, $1,000 here, $200 here, whatever, but it adds up because he has his own stuff going on, he was saying, right? And I go, I agree, right? We plan for us because we can anticipate us. But when someone else kind of comes in and says, hey, look at this, you go, whoa, I wasn't looking at that. So family business starts to change. So we have two choices: to excel so greatly that no matter what comes your way, you can handle it, or be blindsided and just kind of stay in your lane, do what you have to do. And then you always make ends meet. There is no right or wrong way. I mean, the former is definitely going to be the better option, right? Where no matter what comes your way, you are always prepared. But then again, is that fun in life? I think of like the challenge, right? Because it's not a challenge for me to, pay a bill or something if someone needs some help. Like it's like it's easy. But if I didn't have it, oh man, I was like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I say, you know what? Let me figure out how I'm going to do it. Right? That's more enjoyable for me. So, I'm not saying to live in that poverty type mindset or to live into that idea that you always have to figure out something, but to understand that life is always going to be moving. Life is always going to be having its ups and downs and the peaks and the valleys. And there's going to be good moments where you can kind of just look out and say, wow, look at all of these wonderful things. And then some moments you're going to look back and say, wow, I can't believe like the good and the bad that are there, right? The lives that have been gained, the lives that have been lost. At the end of the day, it's still family business because when you're dead and gone, right, the ones who love you the most are going to miss you the most. I don't expect my audience members to miss me. I don't expect, people who have worked with me to shed tears. I just expect for them to kind of maybe appreciate the legacy or to appreciate the work that I've done for them during that time. And then to understand how, fragile life can be. There's always a beginning, there's always an ending. And so in the middle, right, let's create some meaning. What type of meaning will you and your family create? Will you kind of graduate from your mom and your dad and your siblings and kind of see them once a year, two times a year, maybe? Or not communicate with them and just focus on your own family. Or maybe you just want to be a lone warrior and live by yourself with your cat or your dog or whoever. You get to decide. All right. I find most people today, they're looking at creating that family for themselves, looking for marriage, they're looking for kids, they're looking for something that's longer than the family they start out with. Because eventually it will come full circle and it will end. The cycle will end. And so you give yourself the new family, the new legacy, the new generation to move forward because family business is more than just what you currently think. It's going to be who you are, the stories you tell. Down the road, they're going to say, this was grandpa, this was grandma, this was my uncle, my auntie, whoever. And sure enough, they're going to have learned something. The more you can teach them, the more you can instill, the better the business becomes. And the idea of family business is that it is a business. It's something that grows. It's something that operates. It's something that works when you work. So work with the idea of family. Work with the idea that you can make family more than just a moment. A family can be a lifetime. Yeah, sure. Maybe family members can be dispensable. Maybe friends that you have once considered family might be dispensable. But when it comes to family, true family, it's long lasting. My kids, I mean, as long as they need me, I'm there. They could be 28, they could be 100. I don't know if I'll be around when they're 100, but if they needed something, I'm there. right? Because that is what I'm dedicating for them or to them. Now, I understand when they're teens, they might not want to hang out with dad and dad's not cool and things like that. That's not going to affect me. Nothing. Because I already know they're going to come crawling back. They're going to come crawling back in their 20s and they're going to want some hugs and they're going to want some kisses and some conversations, right? And it might not be openly, but passively. I'm going to see it. I know it. I can see it with my family in the dynamic. I know how to create it. I'm already starting the process. So figure out what type of family you want for yourself. Create that business, create that entity, do the work today. It is not going to be something that's always going to be passive, where you can be passive about things. You have to be deliberate. You have to create the intention. You have to put in the time and you have to be deliberate in being present for your family, whether they be young kids or they be the elders in your life that have helped raise you. Appreciate them because one day it'll only be a memory.